Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Mars Swan, Initialize in the center, Nightmare on the other side. Gentlemen, we just witnessed the longest match in the round number 2. We just witnessed the longest match in any playoffs match series internationally. 55 minutes and 15 seconds was the final game time. Initialize. What did we just witness? Because that just was a tale of multiple outcomes and wins and everything else.
It was a game of inches on both sides. Like Ace and Cog with some insane late game team fights, getting them back into the game even. Hollow as well, free firing the best they could on the Ash. On the other side, you had late game Ziggs, Varus with Infernal Soul, and it was like people dying and then backing off, and they couldn't quite end the game as a result. And bad reset or like slightly awkward reset times mean buffs were traded, and it left this incredibly tense late game where both sides were inches away from loss or victory at any given moment.
It was truly monumental, and this was such a great early game from AXIZ, wasn't it? Initialized, like they just kept going again and again and again, and for the first 20 minutes, I was like, "Well, this looks like a done deal, really."
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Hoglet manages to get first blood up topside, diving the Gnar after a really solid wave state set up by Eno, in fairness. And then
that first
ends up down in the bot lane, and they get another couple kills down there. They're 3-0 up. Hoglet's got everywhere. Unica's a little bit behind the play. Looks fantastic. It doesn't last.
It really doesn't. And that's where I want to come over to you, Nymera, because why does it not last?
Because it gets to a point where effectively it becomes very apparent neither backline is in threat unless some godlike play comes through. There is no Leona. There is no... Trying to think of another really good engaged champion. Alistair, great play from a gang, something like that, right? You are looking at the people getting into the backline, having to get through another front line, and there is no threat towards the back of it, unless, even if you land a Mega Inferno bomb or something like that, that takes off 2/3 of the HP, it doesn't kill the target. And you get to the point where...
It's also not CC.
It's also not CC, exactly. And then you get to the point where suddenly, of course, the AXIZ get themselves Infernal Soul. How the hell are you meant to push into the Infernal Soul of Varus 6? Because remember that the Infernal Soul doesn't just apply to champions, it applies to any target you hit. That includes minions. If you have the arrow and have the bombs going through the minion wave, it deletes, it disappears. At that point, you can have 3 waves of super minions for all I care. They're going to melt. There is no way you end the game if AXIZ don't want to play with you. And that's exactly what happened. They stalled out the game.
And that was something that we were witnessing in the green room, because as we were watching this, V3 got everything on the map at one point. They had multiple members with blue, red buff, Baron, Elder, pushing in, and Initialize, all they get is the inhibitor.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this is off the back of the likes of Cog finding this incredible turnaround, sort of like early 20s minutes into the game. I forget the time times because it's gone so damn long. I've lost all my notes at this
Doesn't
point.
matter now.
and he finds way in the bush, gets on top of Mega Man. It's the only death he has that game. It's fantastic. They got onto Nemo's 2 dead. They can get the Baron. This is the turnaround. You think it's going to be super easy. Can't shove in. They get an inhibitor, but it costs them so much. And this feels like the thing is, I could point to nearly any moment of the game where it's like where this kind of shove in happens, because yes, you get this, but it normally costs you Shockwave, Enchanted Crystalline Arrow, possibly a Subjugate. Unica goes in and has to use the Crescent Guard to get out, has his Sterex pop as well, and is now very low, and that's how he survives the rest of the pokes, because he's got this kind of temporary front line on. But the costs are so high, you've got to wait for those cooldowns to come back up, at which point, well, you got an inhibitor, they shove out, and they can try again next time for AXIZ, and this was never more true than around the big objectives.
No, it wasn't, and I'd like to come back to you, Nymera, because you've already you set up a point earlier about how the backlines on both sides couldn't be accessed easily. We saw multiple ball carries come from Unica, but with Cog trying to do this combo CC. We even saw them try and do the pillar with the Mega Gnar. They tried to do the throw, it didn't work. I want to come to you, Nymera, specifically. Why were AXIZ able to clean this out? Because this was something you and me were talking about, because we thought, well, realistically, I think I'm paraphrasing, I'm quoting you here, there should be no way for AXIZ to lose this game.
There basically was no way that their backline was going to die. I started questioning that when Ace managed to get a flash shockwave around the second
I think
Elder
everyone
fight.
was. I think everyone
was. The second Elder fight with the flash shockwaves, thinking, oh heck, that's really bad now. But even then, at that point, AXIZ actually have GAs at that point. Even Hogler managed to get out of that fight. I think the reason that it eventually came down in AXIZ's favor is that effectively you look at the Lee Sin, you get towards the very late stages of the game and you have large amounts of CDR because, of course, Gore Drinker has that mythic stat, gives you extra cooldown through ability haste. You have mobility advantage, and that's a term which I've used a lot this season because it does become quite apparent in some of these fights where Hoglet can get the extra safeguard off, can get the extra safeguard off, whereas Unica can't get the extra audacious charge, can't, of course, choose to have a free targeted dash, it's just onto an enemy target as well. And I think that eventually got to the point where it's all well and good that Orianna has all the damage in the world. You can only do it within about 1,000 range of yourself, whereas you look at Mega Man and Honey, they get to do it a lot more at that point. And Hoglet is pinning someone in place at the same time. It's a close game either way. It goes right the way, it goes right the distance. And I'm feeling pretty good about my 3-2 prediction from this game, I'm not going to lie.
Absolutely. Movement was the Season 11 special. Multiple items coming in. And multiple item reworks have already come through. Movement is being changed in League, and probably slightly rightly so, because the first part of this season was, well, it was very unique, diverse. Maybe not diverse. Maybe just do one thing and you'll win games, ladies and gentlemen. We all know what we had to experience with, what was it called? Uria, and he was just running around best everyone. There we go. But ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna cut over to a short break after that 55-minute and 15-second fiesta. But when we return, we're going to have a gentleman's discussion on what we're expecting for game number 2. Don't go anywhere. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Mars Swan here. Initialize in the middle. Nightmare. No, this side. Hello. on the other side. Hello. Anyway, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Desmas One here with the LJL OU's very special Nishais and Nightmare to break down what we're probably going to see in game number 2, because after a 55-minute game, gentlemen, I'm not really sure how to feel about this series anymore, because this was not the plan by any stretch of imagination. While we expected to go to distance, not like this.
No.
Not at all. Not slightly.
I don't want to say anymore.
The silence sells it. The silence well and truly sells it. Nightmare, you just look disgusted, really.
I just thought of like I thought for a while I was going to analyze certain plays, and I realized that I could probably do the same analysis on about 4 or 5 different plays, and like, yeah, okay, so this is what the game's devolved into. Both these teams have not really got great win conditions here. Cool stuff.
No, they didn't. But we were able to highlight a moment in the game where, honestly, for AXIZ, it was actually looking pretty good for them. The wheels were turning in their favor. If we can head over to that, because it looked okay.
It looked okay. So if we're going to go over to this whole thing, so I've managed to get some things working during the break. This is the fight, as you can see up here, 16 minutes on the clock, which means that this is the second Herald that we do have a fight over. See that absolutely everyone is coming in. Hollow is trying to go a little bit further, but they don't have the ultimate. That's going to be a very important thing, because that's going to embolden AXIZ in this play. Also, another thing that they're lacking is, of course, the Mega Narbard. That is starting to run out. Plus, V3 have not actually got a very firm presence in this kind of area, the river, where they can kind of walk up and say, this is our zone. You can't go and put minefields down. You can't really control where we want to be. Cog, for all, his hard work, does try and keep things working. But, I mean, at this point, if we talk about the area thing, immediately comes out in the first couple of seconds. Reiner doesn't get to walk up and put pillars onto targets like Honey, who really, they don't want to be walking around for free. Whereas they managed to put down this like hazard strip here of the minefield and stop Ace from walking in. Can he, because he can probably queue to about here, maybe along this kind of line. Again, not doing anything for Honey. This is one happy virus right now. Smiley face. Seeing how things work after this point, because V3 are looking for a better angle, they have to wait. They have to wait for the minefield to start dissipating, and they don't manage that. The bombs start coming in. You can already see that's health that they can't fight with now. Hollow still has to walk through this part, and while all of this has happened, Unica has had to bid a hasty retreat, and that's a problem because that splits the team. He's away from the people that can keep him safe. There's no pillar at this point. The box even goes down. Another minefields go down. Yes, they do get themselves the Herald Steel, but this opens them up because they've been pulled apart in so many different side movements. Talked about a bit of mobility advantage going into that last post game. You can see how this play and how AXIZ bide their time and use their area control to take control of that Herald zone. Even though they lose the objective, that's the kind of play I think they showed very well in the early game with that kind of comp.
100%. Thank you so much for that, Nightmare, as well, by the way. Gladly, expertly done, if I must say so myself. But I'm not biased around that one at all. Something you highlighted at the end of that play is obviously the fact that AXIZ not only capitalized on the fact that they got the kills after the fact of giving over the Herald, but they were able to get the turret, and they would really kind of press the advantage further. I want to take us over to a little graphic we prepared earlier around the banned against both these two teams, because this pick and ban phase went absolutely no way I was expecting. And Initialize, can you run me through this?
Okay, so I don't know if you saw AXIZ's team comp, but they had every single one of those champions, plus Lee Sin for Hoglu, who's done pretty disgusting things on that.
Oh, that's it's tied most play champion in Summer Split. That's kind of wild, mate. With Viego, that was banned.
Yeah, exactly. So there's quite a lot here that these teams both really, really value, all of which went to AXIZ and V3, to their credit, had themselves what they felt was at least some answers to some options. They got the Orianna, they got the Ashe, they've got themselves the Gnar, all things which they're all relatively happy with in terms of their players. I mean, the Halo Blades Trundle was making Nightmare rage a little bit, but the point stands that, at least in terms of comfort, at least in terms of what we've seen, this was AXIZ bread and butter to a 44% T.
You couldn't have got it more unless you'd switched Mega Min onto that Renekton and somehow stolen the Gnar for Io at this point, really. Like, we're kind of, we're trading tiny little parts here. And this was just phenomenal to see. Nightmare, I want to know what your thoughts are on this.
So yeah, obviously AXIZ have played a little less of the Varus. That's more of a V3 thing when they played around Hollow. I think this is only Honey's third Varus game, if it comes to mind. I think he only played 2 in the regular split, but
Check.
even then,
You
with
are
that,
correct.
it's not like he is unused to playing the champion, nor are the other players on the Rift are unused to their own characters they ended up wielding to such great effect in that game. And one of the things which I was asking really of V3 pre-game between the break in the split as well, this week where we've had off is okay, AXIZ did not have their picks contested by CGA in the first round. I want to see what happens when AXIZ are forced to dig a bit deeper, and they didn't do that this game. However, it is a best of 5. They do have they have even another time that they can lose a game and start to adapt. They need to do that now though.
Well, I believe well and truly in my predictions, and that V3 are just about to adapt well and truly. It's going to be a 3-0 now for V3. Just watch me, don't clip me. Initialize, how do you feel about your
What was that?
prediction?
Clipping it? I feel like I need
No,
to
no,
clip
no,
that
no
one.
clipping.
No,
No
I
clipping.
cursed DFM in the last
Uh-huh.
analyst test, so I think that's Master doing V3 dirty this time round. So I'm gonna hold on to my prediction
No!
and say no more, lest I let some bad juju out.
Nymera, how do you feel about yours? You feel comfortable, right, in the post
I'm
game?
feeling pretty good about it 3-2. Yeah.
Still V3, yeah?
Jury's out on that one, but 3-2.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Let's throw it over to our Castle of Midnight and Melvin Izzle. Gentlemen, enjoy. How are your predictions doing?
Well, given the fact that we both went for X's, I'm feeling pretty confident after that first round there. Sure, it was a little bit of chaos coming in for our first game of the day, but again, I think this is just the teams getting some jitters out, right? This is the first game of a best of series. Everything they've been working on is getting them to this point. And for game number 2, Melvin Izzle, I think let's start at our own little look at this train. And I think that a Hextech Explosive Expert may be the first bit of priority that these teams will look at coming into this game number 2.
I'm hoping to see that Ziggs ban, not just because of the fact that I'm nearly out of water after the first game. Taps have run dry. My throat is already looking like the Sahara Desert. We'll have to see right now what happens after this pick and ban, because I don't see Ziggs immediately banned from V3, and AXIZ are once again on the blue side of the map.
Yeah.
So, with the bans going very similarly to last time, I'm thinking that Ziggs flex pick may be coming out from AXIZ again.
Yeah, I mean, the flex picks in the first game were I thought they were really fun, right? Like, we had the Trundle flex pick, we had the Ziggs flex pick, which we weren't really ready for when we first saw it. But first thing we saw Ziggs, like, okay, Honey's going to get that, even though that's not really Honey's style. So I love the flexibility of those lock-ins there, and we'll have to see as the final ban coming through here. V3, are you going to go for the Viego again?
It's a
Yes,
run back.
you are.
It's a run
And
back.
you can just straight up run it back. There is nothing stopping AXIZ from grabbing themselves the Ziggs, grabbing themselves whatever the hell they're actually feeling like.
I would be shocked if they don't just pick the Ziggs here, because I have to say, Megumin had a stormer of a game. They absolutely stomped for a majority of that. I believe they only had the one death at the end of it, and it was after everything was thrown at them. As V3 do pick up the Gnar again, but this time saying, we want the Varus. Let's kind of split up that poke duo.
Yeah, and I love that as an adaptation because, again, coming into game 1, they thought that the Ziggs was going into Honey's head. They weren't really ready for it to be in the bot half of the map. So suddenly, like, okay, let's change it up a little bit here, and I'm not even going to get baited by that one. Oh my god, let's go! Gameplay coming out for Inno!
Okay,
And Leona!
Oh, this is going to be beautiful if they lock that in. That is really a hellscape for Hollow looking at this game now, because the Gangplank ultimate combos so beautifully with the Ziggs and the Leona ults. It just means that from a screen away, Varus just doesn't get to play the game, which means that you really do need to be precise. And with the Leona gone, that's another one of those supports that enable the poke with hard CC. Right now, we do have Alistair is still on the table. That is the one that I was thinking would be picked up, as I assume that will be Ziggs heading towards mid, but it means that just because it can still go bot, V3 may have to ban the Silas, because otherwise you've just given away a Gnar and an Alistair ultimate, and a Varus ultimate to a potential Silas, which is almost too good of an angle for AXIZ not to take.
Like, I think it's mandatory to be banned that one there, because you're seeing the Leona, you're seeing the Ziggs, you have to be thinking to yourself, well, that can go either lane. So you're stuck in a bit of an impossible situation. Instead, they do a ban that I'm not too much of a fan of. Yes, Hogwarts Lee Sim was damn good, but I still think there are so many mid lane picks and bot lane picks that you really need to be looking at instead of in this situation. But so far, the team's relatively happy with what they have locked in. As there is one champion I have been very critical of in the LJL, the Gnar, that Cold got locked in. And this is the one time I'm looking at the Gnar locked in here, and I'm actually not hating it. So, because Cold last game was doing God's work on that champion there, and different matchup, but I'm still pretty confident that Cold can do well, as Olaf is the final ban there. Not entirely a fan of that one either, to be honest.
That makes me think that V3 are going to go for a lot more of the dive-in kind of strategy and just leave Hollow on the backline, which Olaf could really run through the Alistair and the Gnar. But even then, Silas still open, AXIZ. There's no reason why they can't take that one in the mid lane and send Honey down onto this. The only thing that you would be looking at that and going, well, then you're a bit AD heavy, and if you don't notice in those last 3 bans between the teams, most of the AD junglers have just been banned, as I expect V3 to pick up the last one here. It does mean that you need a really reliable AP source in the mid lane if you do pick up that Trundle, because otherwise, I can see AXIZ just locking in a hefty tank somewhere in the, potentially a Galio if they were put in the mid lane, or something else like that in the jungle, and they could kind of just laugh at V3, because the Trundle can shred the resistances of that tank, but you can have 2, as there's the counter pick. Yes, the Kindred in the first game. They don't do it, but now they bring it out. Great duo with the Ziggs, and it leaves options for for AXIZ again. God's sake.
So, what's worrying me here is that, yeah, the Azir, I was going to say, Azir was hovered by V3, and they say, you know, no, we'll take the Azir ourselves for Mega Min. So, normally I would say, oh crap, that's a very heavy AP comp. You've got Azir in the mid lane, you've got Ziggs in the bot lane, and then I realize you're running double carries in the top half.
Oh, it's so scary. It's so scary.
The Gangplank and the Kindred as well. If you don't get on top of AXIZ tears you apart from a distance. So I guess V3 says, okay, you've got some range. Let's try and match it with the Zoe.
Okay, they've managed to steal the poke composition part of AXIZ, but the issue that I'm having is, while Zoe is a good matchup into Azir notoriously, like in the past, because you can throw the bubble through the walls and then go for that kind of pick before they get to trade onto you, because you can try and clear the wave from so far away. Ace should be comfortable here. The issue is, there's so much good zone control that all the weaknesses we're talking about with the Varus of being susceptible to getting Gangplank ulted into Leona, into Ziggs, same thing for Zoe, and I would say even worse, because when Zoe jumps in through her portal jump, you know exactly where she's coming back out, so that Ziggs bomb will always land straight and true.
It's the curse of the Zoe, right? You think, oh, this champion's so mobile, it's so safe, you can do a lot with it, and then you realize when she does do her with one bit of mobility, she's going exactly back where she came from. You don't, it's like the Draven Axe, you know exactly where they're gonna go, and with the amount of engage that you've got available to you, with the Leona, with the Gangplank, with the, not engaged with the Kindred, but the murder from the Kindred in Hoglet's hands. I'm really, really excited to see how this comes out here. Because again, we've reached this game. I'm looking at Pick Bam, and I'm thinking to myself, I like what both these teams are bringing to the table here. Like, they've both got a pretty nice mixture of damage. Obviously, AXIZ overstacking their damage a little bit, one might argue. Whereas the side of V3, it's a bit more of a standard poke composition with the Varus, with the AXIZ Zoe.
I think that I like the point you're going for with the overstacking damage, but I'm going to pivot it slightly to, there is a lot of gold-reliant champions on this team. You need to be getting maximum income at all times if you want to stay on curve, because otherwise, we could see Ace and Hollow just get all the money funneled into them, and they could do the same work that the Ziggs plus the Azir could do individually. Because if they poke you from far enough away, if they're on 2 items when Azir and the Ziggs are only on 1.5, then that could secure them those early objectives. And I know last game was hopefully, but I'm not going to say likely, an exception to the rule. If this game goes on for a ridiculous length, I think once again, AXIZ will come out on top, because now they have the GP, who is an equally scary threat. The only thing I will say that goes a bit better for V3 in this one is that Cog now has somebody who they can reliably side lane against and try to outplay, because in the last one it was all 5v5 all the time. The Gnar had to land big ultimates or they didn't get to play the game, which they did more often than not, but now they at least have an alternate win condition on the table.
Yeah, and that's going to be really important for V3 right now, because we saw the pressure that game number 1 must have put in those players. How we felt it, and we were casting the damn thing coming into here. So coming into game number 2, sure, you can try a bit of a mental reset, but you didn't have that long of a break. You had a couple minutes before you're forced to fight yet again for your tournament life here. So V3 probably feeling quite a bit of pressure, and if you're AXIZ, I think you'd be feeling pretty happy. Not only did you win a very stressful game, which is a brilliant feeling, but now you've got the ever-reliant thought of, if we go late again, if we get to another 40-minute slugfest, our composition, as long as we can keep feeding ourselves the gold, is going to be amazing. With the damage of the Gangplank and the infinite scaling of your jungle kindred.
Talk about almost the deja vu of last game. I feel like Hoglet has got himself a favorable jungle matchup, now against the Trundle on this Kindred. They have the scaling lead, they have the poke lead later on. It has to be much later on, though. I would say in the mid game, the Zoe plus Varus will be favored. It's only in the super late when it will be the Gangplank barrels able to half bar from far away. I think the V3 have angles to attack, but they need to be getting early picks. And one of the reasons that last game was so difficult to lose from AXIZ, regardless of the plays that happened, was that Infernal Soul. 4 dragons back to back to back to back, all on Hoglet, managed to get them that soul. If they can snowball off of dragons again, then I could see a similar lead amassing. We do have that ward spotted out from Cog. It's a different one to what AXIZ put down last time, so that should mean that Unica can try and path around it. No cheeky plays here, as it means Cog will not get spotted and won't give away the fact whether they're leashing or not.
And of course, the early game jungle plays, especially for the likes of a Kindred, I think is really, really important. You want to try and keep the Kindred as hidden as possible here, not let them know where is the Kindred starting, where is that first gank coming in, because I know quite a few mid laners are a fan of receiving a level 2 gank, and I mean proper level 2 red buff into mid lane. So, as we can see there, Ace, more than aware that that is a possibility, did get the early ward Hoglet. Whether they intended to or not, they will likely just do the same pathing that they did on the Lee Sin last round. Go buff into your Krugs and do a full bottom side clear. So, nothing too early happening. No of those level 2 ganks that I love to see there. And we're already, look at the minimap there. We're actually seeing pings already saying, hey, look, there's a chance Hoglet's already on the top half of the map.
With that initial ward coming down, there was no counter ward put down by Cog, so it's the kind of thing that when you see it, it makes you think, well, sure, they want to fight down here. Now, in this early laning, Hollow and Reiner do have the advantage, just because Honey won't have the sustained damage to be able to return trades.
Oh my lord, a fight in the bottom of Hollow.
One
mouth. Hit away from it. Honey says, thank you for the first blood, baby. And this is a disaster for V3, losing control of the bot lane not 3 minutes into the game.
Honey can't do sustained trades, but burst trades go very much in their favor. Give me like 3 more seconds access next time, and then I seem smart, but now it just looks like I hard entered that one. But look at this, they managed to get the early level 2 because Nemo's hitting the wave, and Hollow just dies. There's nothing they can do here. The cleanse. You were talking about last time, the lack of heal means pre-level 4 kills are so easy for either of the bot lanes. Now it's the same thing, but it's only one way, and they almost get Reiner as well on the way out. And the fact that Honey has teleport, they could actually come right back in and continue to exert pressure. And now that Reiner has to base because of that, Hollow's just going to get poked out again, and it becomes a never-ending cycle where if you're allowed to get a tier or a lost chapter or the first back, which Honey did, it becomes almost unplayable in the early lane phase and nearly necessitates a jungle to give you a bailout, as I believe Hoglet does collect on their first mark of the game. Really important, because Inno did have that top prior for them.
Yeah, but wasn't able to get that one. Now, it won't secure the bottom side scuttle, but if you're Hoglet, I don't even think you care playing that, the double scuttle game in this situation. You've gotten the first mark of the game. That's something that we can hopefully try and track throughout the course of the match, because obviously, if every stack you get just that much more powerful. So that'll be a fun one to keep track of as jungle's on the bottom side here. TP is being used very aggressively by both sides in the early game here. And Hoglet is on the top half of the map at basically the same time that he was there when they committed to that dive when he was playing the Lee Sin. So Hoglet with, I'm going to call it predictable pathing, but has V3 smelled this out given the fact that it is very different champions this match?
I mean, you just marked them, so Kog'Kog knows they're the center of attention right now, but I think they just don't expect it because it's a Kindred, and the Gangplank really doesn't offer the same gank assist, but they're here.
Oh my god, flashes for this one there, and they're going to get this one. Kog'Kog was marked, yet didn't play fully back, didn't think it was going to be coming from behind, and flash of history. This happened in game 1. It's happened in game 2 now, Melvin Izzle.
2 marks for Kindred at 4 minutes and 50 should not be allowed. This is a spot where you are already sweating if you are a V3 player. We have now that Unica is walking over to this Raptor camp to try and get a bit of invading done, but the thing is, they've just been marked now. So if they overextend here, if bot lane or mid can collapse, then that could be a 3rd mark over to Kindred. 4 is where they get the extra 75 range. If you accelerate them that far in the early game, Hoglet, I feel like, is going to go for a deja vu, just running over the jungle matchup again.
Yeah, well, so far it's worked out quite nice for AXIZ. It's a trade in the bottom side, puts Hollow in a little bit of an awkward spot there, but it's just, posturing right down in that bottom side of the map as Ace in this middle lane. I did want to talk about it a little bit, but we got interrupted by Hoglet doing his thing. But what I really wanted to talk about, the fact that, never mind. I'm not allowed to talk about that one as Hollow. Immediate cleanse there. Really good job from Reina, though, to buy a lot of room and actually turn this one around onto Nemo, who is forced to flash to avoid any chance of going down. Ace, though, is interested, but do they know that Hoglet is nearby? They're going to butt heads, but it's 2 members of V3 coming in to reinforce them as Nemo is going to engage there onto Hollow. Oh my god! That's disgusting! That's not allowed as Honey is backing away, but he's bought enough time for the team. Now Ace is forced to flash out to safety, and the cannon barrage coming out on top here. V3
Megaman's here, he has
tried
the shuffle.
a lot, but will it not work here? As Megaman, as you said, coming in here looking for something, but V3, they smelled it out. They didn't want to even try and take that exchange.
And Hoglet is going to take the Scuttle Crab right here, and potentially the Dragon as well, but they could decide to just walk through mid and go for that Raptor camp, because you know that Megaman will have mid prio here. Everybody was on the bot side, and they've only just had Trundle walk away. And this looked like it was an overextension from AXIZ. Reina doing a great job managing to get the better end of this, setting their ADC up for the kill. Nemo forced a flash there, but watch this. It is the mid jungle walking down from V3, headed off by Hoglet, means that Ace has already burnt their abilities, so they're useless to come help right now. So beautifully done. This is why the AXIZ bot lane has been getting praised all split. They work so well together. And now, in what is I would say a 2v3, because you're not getting anything more from Nemo, they force Ace's flash, which you never want to be flashless against an Azir, because if Zoe ever walks in and does the portal jump, you're getting shuffled, Hoglet is killing you, and it is lights out.
Yeah, and that's just more and more problems, more and more things that V3 have to take into account here. And I'm still a bit surprised, honestly, that Honey is performing so well on this Ziggs. He has been a signature, hyper marksman player. And the one time we did see that Ziggs in the regular season, it wasn't a standout performance. It really didn't, especially to me, it didn't exactly speak to me that much. So to see him being suddenly so confident, 2-0 already on that champion, partly courtesy of his support doing damn good work on the Leona, which is what you need to see out of an engaged champion. For all the praise and, focus we were putting on our junglers for game number 1 here, Hollow and Reina, they look like they just cannot go toe-for-toe against the hungry duo that is AXIZ's bot lane right now.
And I think we're getting to see what we were alluding to a lot last game, saying why Ziggs is so good with hard CC champions. Because look at this, you can't avoid the trade. Ooh, chains did land though.
Reina's is going to go down here. Level 5, there is no unbreakable will here. This is a very good piece of beef there. And now Nemo might even get taken out, but a stopwatch actually gives him that. Meanwhile, Hoglet and Ace, it looked like Ace overstayed their welcome, just like you said they might, as Megaman flashes the safety. Hoglet will hold the front line, not able to drop the lamb despite in time. But with the 4th mark here, Unica is not running away. He has to fight, and it's a trade that he knows he cannot win.
AXIZ have this game in the pocket at this point. It may not be off of Dragons, but a 4-mark Kindred, this accelerated, it should be an unlosable state. They're going to go over and get the 5th, and they're actually going to take the Dragon instead by the looks of it, which is even better of a win. As watch this again for AXIZ bot lane. There's not much Reiner can do. They just get CC'd, forced into the trade. You have to commit, and Honey very respectfully flashes away, actually, means that Hollow cannot return any damage. And watch this, because Reiner dies to that one, the CC goes straight onto Hollow, and because of how much fighting there's been, Nemo has such an early stopwatch, they still end up dying, and I don't know if Hollow actually got out, because I didn't see the kill feed. Oh, okay.
Oh!
They did their best, but you know what? It wasn't enough in this kind of matchup. In the mid lane, though, there was at least one return kill for V3, but I think everything that is going for V3 is an at least when you have a Kraken Slayer Kindred with four marks right now walking at you. Unica is out of this game.
He's not the only one. Honey has a mythic as well. 2 members of AXIZ have a mythic, and then the 2 that we've been talking about, all one is Honey takes away the Rift Herald and Solar Flare connects as well. This is a disaster for V3. Things went from bad to worse to nothing short of a damn disaster, as Reiner is going to get turned into a Big Mac at this point here. He's not getting away. The Super Mega Inferno Bomb and one more slice. In fact, the burn coming through there from Honey is going to make sure that that is a well done chunk of Cal there. And now the Rift Herald dropped as well. I don't feel like we're getting a repeat of game number 1, because game number 1 was slow, it was stressful. Game number 2, the turret is gone by 10 minutes.
I was going to say, do you want some good news? Because I don't think it's going to be 50 minutes this time. As Hoglet is 2 levels up right now. The fact they get the Rift Herald on top of this, it wouldn't even be good for V3 if they get it, because you can't go secure it. But just watch this right here. Nemo with the perfect stun onto 2 people. The jumping knot taken out of the sky. As at this point, what can you even do as Ryder? You're level 5. You still don't have the unbreakable will. As you're just chased down by mages who normally would be able to resist quite well. At this point in the game, it's not happening for you. So that tower is gone. The next one is chunked out. If Honey is ever mid lane, it just gets blown up. These gold leads are ridiculous. That is 2.5k gold on Hoglet over Unica. And this was one of the things we were talking about coming into the series of Unica getting adapted into this team, chucked in at the deep end. Hoglet, earlier on in the split, in the first game that these 2 teams played against each other, the only time V3 has beaten AXIZ in this split so far, Hoglet was the shining light in the jungle. That was against Mugen at the time, but they were still the one thing that was keeping the game competitive. And ever since, Hoglet just seems to consistently show up in this matchup.
Ooh. Now, the fight going down there, Hollow getting set up a beautiful cleanse. Actually, is enough to put Honey down as Hoglet does arrive. Hollow's going to go down here. That is yet another mark. 7 marks at 12 minutes.
No,
that's
it's
illegal.
Done. It's done. This game is over. I'm calling it here. The pulse is gone for V3. A 600 range Kindred cannot die to these players. There's nothing you can do.
This is disgusting. He's dead. I'm amazed Raider even got out alive. This game is so different to the first match of the series here. First match was slow. First match was methodical. First match was the slowest game of 3D chess I've ever seen in my life. This game is a 5-minute blitz of dodgeball.
And you know why? It's because they're set up for the Ziggs. It's because Hoglet is not trying to snowball through dragons. He's snowballing through kills. He's 7-0.
He's got
reverse James
marks.
Bond.
Oh, that is disgusting to witness. I mean, it's the power of a good Kindred, right? This champ. I love it as well. They banned the Lee Sin out of fear. I feel like we're going to be getting a different ban next game as Ace making a play down onto Megamin, some nice damage, but just doesn't have the output. Look at he's only got a lost chapter, which at 13 minutes, like, okay, that's fine. Hoglet has a Kraken Slayer, and I think Ace is his next victim. As you can, he's around, but yeah, you're just forced to run. There's no safety in numbers against an angry Kindred.
My favorite part about this right now, Midnight, is trying to think of what they're going to replay on the analyst desk, because at this point, I don't think it's anything that's coming in the future. It's got to be something in the past, because Hoglet has taken this game and said, no, we're going to fight DFM one way or another, and you will not stop us, V3. You are not the Gate Guardians for us. After that slog of a first game, I think that this game is over. I don't think that V3 have the tools to stop them, because the issue is, compared to last game, where if we had AXIZ get behind, Ziggs is much better at wave clearing from behind than Zoe is. And the reason for that is Zoe has to literally commit to jumping forward, whether it be through the portal jump or otherwise, to clear the wave. Ziggs does not have to do that. So Ace is going to need to be on point with bubbles, on point with these paddle stars, if they even want to try and stop the force that is going to be Honey walking down mid with a Rift Herald spawning in a minute 30, as they're trying to make a play onto Inno on this weak side right now. But it is a level 11 GP!
And he knows it's not like it can actually do anything. A level 7 Reyna, a level 8 Yukinika, there's nothing you can do. Hogla has 3 levels. That is how far this game has fallen out of hands. He has a 14-minute...
That's a marked ace. I would be running if I were you, friend. That is... You're overextended.
You're in your lane. Oh no, he portaled. That's goodbye. There he goes into the waiting hands of Hogla. Mega Man is just setting it up now. AXIZ have decided, look, our composition does well in the late game. That is true. However, what if we just, have a 8,000 gold lead at 15 minutes? How about that as a counterpoint to the late game? As 9,000 gold, 15 minutes, 1 dragon.
So I think what AXIZ have done here is they forgot to press the button in chess that swaps whose turn it currently is from the previous game. So it was 55 minutes, but what was actually happening was, the late game from then actually carried over to now. So the late game momentum that AXIZ had after one of those last fights, they're like, okay, it never stopped actually. We're just going to keep that confidence going. And the biggest issue when you have a long game in a best of series is you could end up just losing all momentum. V3, they're trying to recover it now, and it's off Cog again.
Yeah, Cog trying to lead the charge up, but Mega Time's out there, is not dying just yet, and with the TP coming through, I'm not sure they're going to be able to get him, because it's oranges, it's all okay, and the bomb devastates Ace, devastates what's left of Reyna's health bar, and Cog is forced to flee there. It looks like, though, did go down. The camera is not showing us, but it was Yukinika, who just, I think that was a final dive by the V3 jungler just to try and recover the situation.
There's no recovery from here. Honestly, AXIZ could all run under the towers and just die at once, and they would still be ahead in the game. We saw last time V3 managed to drag the game back in because it was a similar state, it just wasn't this bad. And it was snowballing off of dragons, not gold. What that means is until the soul is secured, you don't realistically get that big lead. You don't get that massive power bump. When you're snowballing off of gold instead of off of objectives, you got that power bump. Hogla is probably going back for a 3rd item at this point. They are a 10-mark Kindred. I think that puts them at 625 range, which is...
I believe so.
Up there. What's Caitlyn's auto attack range? It's not far off of that.
It's about 650, I believe. I believe the highest range in the game is 800 something, which I believe is level 18 Tristana.
Okay,
I'm sure we can ask production to help us out with this one here. To clarify,
how far does Hogla have to go to beat Caitlyn? That's all we need to know. That's the real question of this game. Will they get there? That's the only race happening now.
Yeah, because look at the gold difference between these two teams. 11,000 gold, I think we just basically call it. And it is well considered within League that if you are, I think it's 10,000 gold ahead of your opponents, we call it the mark, where it is arguably impossible to recover the game state unless there is a serious cacophony of errors coming in from your opponents. So V3, if they want to try and turn this around, they certainly have their work cut out for them here, as they're going to lose what's left of their outside tier 2s.
Midnight, I have good news for you. It's only 650 auto attack range for Caitlyn, so Hogla is 3 kills off of matching that by the looks of it. So, that's at least something we have to keep us going for this game, because I imagine this Rift Herald is going to hit the tower, Honey's going to throw an auto attack in, press W and it dies. Or they're just going to poke Ace out relentlessly if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, it is within satchel charged range, and AXIZ can just sort of... Honestly, if AXIZ want to, they can just take the slow. There's no need to force it if Hollow is stepping up to try and play defense, and they can just take this nice and slow. You have such a lead that as long as you don't get caught out, as long as you don't get pulled into a scrappy 1v4 fight, if Hoglet isn't there, you should be good to go.
And I think playing it slow works, not only because that dragon's a kindred mark right there. We're getting another. We're coming to that Caitlyn auto attack range. It's really the only thing that AXIZ have to focus on at this point because the game is so far gone for V3. There's no miracle Gnar that Cog can get because unlike last game, the disengage was the Thresh. It was the Lee Sin. This time, they have an Azir. They have a kindred. Even if this was an even game state, Cog doesn't get to play the game like he did last time, and they were the one thing that was keeping V3 holding on throughout, I would say, a good 30 minutes of the middle point of that game, and that was why it looked close. It was why V3 secured 2 times over Elder plus Baron, but they just can't end with it because Gnar doesn't work in the enemy base. He doesn't work for ending the game. He works for in the river, in the jungle, looking for these picks, flanking. You can't flank a Nexus.
I mean, you can try, but I'm not sure it's gonna work. It's the heartbreaking part of it because Cog's flanks in that first game were amazing. Not only were they amusing, but half the time they were putting AXIZ in a really awkward spot where, like,
It was effective, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It worked. It did its damn job well. And now you're in a game state where a team fight AoE flank doesn't matter if you don't kill Hoglet. And the problem is you can't nuke out the Hoglet because, well, Hoglet has a Lamb's Respite. Hoglet has 3 items, but you have to nuke him out because you're not killing him in a straight-up fight.
19
so what
minutes,
do you do?
33 seconds for 3 items, including an Infinity Edge. Reiner, how many autos have you got in your... It's not
He had
me.
ultimate! Had ultimate! I should be the important... No, didn't even get the to use it. Reiner decided it wasn't even worth pressing the R key the moment he saw Hoglet around the bush, and you know what? I don't really blame the boy. As the Baron is started up at 20 minutes.
They gotta try and steal it, but the thing is, Hoglet's kindred, so you can't steal it if they play correctly. If they press R as it gets low, Unica's gonna flash in and look like a fool, and there's nothing they can do to beat it.
Oh, they get Nemo, though. That's really nice there. And in fact, they've abandoned the objective itself instead, looking for a bit of a fight there. But V3 successfully backing up. But now, but Ace, no! Ace, no! Baits his team in and gets cut down. Megaman is low. Cog throws out the boomerang, but just doesn't have the damage. And now forced to flee in over the wall. The red buff taken by Hoglet. Again, there is nothing this man will not take. He'll take your base. He'll take your objectives. He'll take your red buff. He'll take your kills as well.
So, Baron's going to go over and AXIZ have a clean way to win. Let's talk about the next game, because if V3 do come back and win this game, we'll acknowledge it when it happens. But until then, I'm not convinced that there's any way back into it. For the rest of the series, it could be 1 or it could be 3 games. I think that a majority of us on the predictions went for 3-2. That first game reaffirmed that expectation. This game, not so much. V3 need to pull out a different kind of style and ban Ziggs. I don't know why this is so difficult. It happened last time that AXIZ played. When they were against CGA, they let through Jinx Thresh several times over. 2 times in the first 2 games, they said, no, we can beat it. Surely after the first game, you identify Ziggs as the problem and say, no, we can beat it. And I think that this is either a case of teams underestimating AXIZ or them having too many arrows in their quiver that they can throw at you now. And it's hard to say which it is because until Ziggs is banned and we see what AXIZ do instead, I don't know.
Oh boy. Unica's just gonna die here. There's no no, he's dead. That's unfortunate there, buddy. One more hit and Inno will take that one. Says thank you very much. The collector does work with the ultimate there. So it's a bit odd here. I feel like it coming into the next game, V3, maybe they need to swap sides. Maybe that's the solution to the problem.
They don't get the choice. This was their choice of side. It's because AXIZ were the higher seed. They get first, third, and fifth game. That's the worst part from now. They don't get the option anymore. Yeah.
Well, there goes my one solution. Then yeah, ban the Ziggs. Maybe even look at the Kindred as, do you want to get rid of this? Because if you give Hoglet something he's feeling, I'm feeling hella nervous as Hoglet grabs his 10th kill on the game. The unkilled player of this game so far. And, well, AXIZ, they're just going to end this one in style. Game number 1 ended in a barn burner. Game number 1 ended in such a spectacular fashion. But game number 2 ends not with a bang, but with a whimper, as AXIZ just crushed down the turret here. And V3, demoralization, broken mental, call it what you will. They didn't show up to play in game number 2 of this series.
Just doing a little bit of quick maths. All right, we could have fit 2.3 of game 2s into the game 1 duration. That was how much quicker AXIZ were at taking that victory. I came into the day with this bottle of water ready to last me the whole series. I didn't have to drink any more after this game, so you know what? It's compensated. Thank you, AXIZ. You could go back to having a banger 3-2 now, because V3, they need to kill that Ziggs. They cannot let that through, especially if AXIZ end up going towards that blue side, which I can't see why they wouldn't at this point. Else, they're just going to lose the series to Ziggs gap. Because, I mean, it just hurts to watch. It really does.
Yeah, the Ziggs has proven its due worth quite a bit here. And I'm honestly still very, very impressed by Honey's performance on it. Honestly, it wasn't a champion, for me at least. When I think of Honey, I don't think of the likes of Ziggs. I think of myself of that undefeated Jinx. I think to myself of the Aphelios. I think these ridiculous hyper carry that we know they can perform damn well on. And instead it says, okay, look, the Ziggs is truly flexible. Yeah, you can flex the Trundle, that's cute. Can you flex the Ziggs though? Hell, can you get the Ziggs? Because so far the answer very much appears to be no. That Ziggs is, yeah, I don't know if there's a better way to word it. Get it on the ban bench at this point. V3, I think that's the only solution they've got, because clearly they saw it, they said, okay, we can fix this. Game number 2, no, we can't. So what's the next step for them coming through here, I wonder?
As do I, and if it's not banning Ziggs, I don't know what comp they can put together to beat it at this point, because one of the things that when we're doing our prep, we had our narrative meeting, I think AXIZ is the best team in the league at playing around a good Fed member. Usually it's Honey, but when it is Hoglet, we saw it in the first game, we saw it in the second game. Hoglet was popping off on the Lee Sin, and in this game, I don't think there's a word for what he was doing on the Kindred, because it was just a massacre. There was no playing the game for V3. After they got that initial kill on the, I believe it was the top side was his first, it was either first or second, they just kept it going. They never stopped. The tempo was insane, and it has to be commended for AXIZ at how well they take a massive, long slog of a 55-minute game and then condense it down in the second one.
Yeah, impressive turnaround there, but with game number 2 done up and wrapped up in a very pretty little bow, I should note. We will be going to a short 2-minute break, guys, but when we come back, the analyst desk will have a bit more spare time on their hands to look at game number 2 of our best of 5 semi-final series here. So don't go anywhere. The LJL OU will be right back.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this. Masked One, initialized in the middle. Mirror over on the other side. We just witnessed the fastest game in the LJL 2021 Summer Playoffs after the back-to-back of the longest game of the LJL Summer Playoffs. What is going on at the moment, initialized? AXIZ are just a tale of two cats. Narwhals. Help!
I'm a bit distracted. I'm looking at the
Yes.
date right now. It appears to be August. October 31st isn't for another 2 months or so, but his
no,
Halloween
well
came a little early because Kindred was claiming some souls. The doors were open and Kindred was ushering them all through all game. That was disgusting stuff.
Yeah, I went to go get a coffee, but the coffee machine was actually marked by Hogler, and he just ran in, picked it up, and ran off with it. He just picked it up and ran. Like, I don't know where it is now. So if anyone's seen like a bright red coffee machine, please let me know. It needs to come home.
I mean, thankfully I was able to secure my coffee. It looks like Initialized was able to do the exact same. Hopefully, Nymera, after this game, you'll be able to secure it again. Hoglet, there's no way he's going to be allowed it again. That Kindred. That was disgusting.
No, surely not. The thing with Kindred is great into people who stack HP and can't get on top of it. And maybe there's the other thing is like there's always the addendum of things like Gragas being able to knock people out of your ultimate if that's what Kindred is there for. Think Zillion Kindred comps. This was not Zillion Kindred. This was Kindred being there to be a serious damage threat. It was something stupid by 7 marks, which is your second range increase. That's 100 extra range at what? 12 minutes? That is absurdly fast. Gold standard for Kindred is 4 marks by 18.
I mean, what were those Nexum stats initialized? Because I think I should give the Kindred aficionado the pleasure.
So, I mean, this is the deal. So they were at 10 marks, which they got.
My tweets are if
easily.
you need a bit of notes,
No,
just in case.
I went and got them all up. At 10
Okay.
marks, you got yourself third range increase, which is 125 additional range, which is
Huge.
bloody ridiculous. You're looking at something like an additional 5% missing health damage on your mounting dread, which is putting it up to something like 13%. By the way, that can critically strike. You're looking at Wolf's Frenzy doing basically a Blade of the Ruin King proc on every auto attack, and that scales with your attack speed. By the way, every time you Q, you're looking at an additional 75% attack speed at 10 marks. It is obscene stuff.
Yeah, and what we're doing now is we're basically checking whether whether Hogler has broken a world record.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I have ever seen 10 marks in a professional game. If we have, it's very, very rarely. Hogler got to, I believe, 11 by the end of the game.
Yep.
The timestamp for 10 marks was 16 minutes and 38 seconds.
We've got the timestamp for 11. We know
For
he
11,
did get that 11.
Slightly after.
Yeah,
But, like,
1910.
1910 for 11 marks. These are meant to be luxury upgrades, which kind of keep you in line with the game when the game goes later and allows you to be a longer range AD carry without bullying out the early game. This is just an absolute capitulation from V3, where they could not keep Hogler out of the fights. It happened around bot lane. And the fact that they had to then scrap bot lane, scrap the 2v2, go towards topside, but they're against a gangplank. They just ults the wave. It doesn't matter. Ino just runs off. He plays like, one of my favorite players from back in like season 5 was a guy called Trace on Jinner. He was playing like Rumble and just like being the weak side king, just understanding every time someone comes to his lane. It's exactly what Ino did here. V3 just could not answer it.
But we talked about this on our podcast because this was something we mildly predicted could come out. We know this schedule, gentlemen. We watched Summer Split play out. No, Spring Split in 2020. We saw the Sengoku DFM series where the Trundle was such an important match, and then the counter pick Kindred. We've already seen this script. It was something we were talking about in the green room, and gentlemen, I have to throw it to you. We knew this was going to happen the moment the Trundle was locked in. It had to be a jungle.
Yeah. I mean, the thing
It's a
is,
formality.
Honey is proven they play the Ziggs really well. We don't have to be worried about them playing it. It looked phenomenal on that too. Again, we've talked about the Kindred because it was exciting and different and possibly world record breaking. But that Ziggs being flexible, the fact they've got the Kindred in the back option, it was a nice adaptation around the Leona for even more hard engage. This was really good.
Yeah, bot lane action was huge. Azir, Mega Min had a really stellar game on this Azir. He was playing a lot of just, here you go, Hogler, here's an extra stack. And I know in that top side, played weak side really well because that's what he needed to do, right, Nymera?
Yep, exactly. That's all you need to do. All you need to do is say you don't get a win condition here. Sure, you can take a couple of plays. I don't care. You're not
Even
going to
a
get a win
turret.
condition here. That's exactly what he did. He just said, we are winning bot lane so hard, and Hoglet is now the primary carry, not even the secondary carry. I don't need to do much. I just need to make sure that I don't overplay myself and lose ourselves the game. Exactly what he did.
Exactly. And let's now go over to a very short break, 2 minutes or so. But when we return, let's get ready for game number 3. Is it going to be a 3-0, ladies and gentlemen? You let me know in that Twitch chat. Oh, look at that.